It's undeniable that discussing the private lives of BTS is like playing with fire in a warehouse full of gasoline. On one hand, we know they are global icons whose privacy is strictly guarded by their agency. But on the other hand, our human instinct to be curious is constantly stirring. Honestly, I often find it strange why we are so hungry to know who the lucky people were who captured their hearts before they became as massive as they are today. Is this just mere gossip, or are we actually searching for the human side of figures who appear like gods on stage? My personal opinion is that they definitely have secrets far more complex than just stories of puppy love in school. Imagine the pressure they face. Every step is monitored, and every ex-girlfriend could become an easy target for the media. I think there are many stories intentionally buried to maintain that perfect image. But tonight, I want to try and break it down based on what they've leaked themselves, and the rumors that never die among longtime fans. We'll see who has been the most open about their past, and who has truly bolted the door to their hearts shut. Curious, right? Let's get straight into the list. Number 7, Jimin. When we talk about Jimin, honestly, I often feel a mix of pity and fascination. Among all the members, he's the one who makes me wonder the most. Is it really possible that a guy this charismatic doesn't have a flashy dating history? At this point, I personally start to suspect that Jimin is either someone who is incredibly neat at keeping secrets, or he truly is the living definition of a sad boy. What people rarely discuss is his very thin yet painful admission about one-sided love during his school days. Imagine a Jimin who, on stage, can make thousands of people faint with just one glance. Used to be just a Busan teenager whose face would turn bright red and whose heart would almost jump out of his chest just from seeing the girl he liked. He once mentioned that every time he was in front of his crush, he would suddenly freeze up. This isn't a trivial matter from a psychological perspective. It shows that Jimin has a very deep side of vulnerability. I often reflect, is his global popularity now a form of sweet revenge against his past full of uncertainty and romance? Socially, many fans feel Jimin belongs to everyone because he doesn't have the shadow of a strong ex-girlfriend. But honestly, in my opinion, Jimin probably has one or two stories he keeps locked tightly in his heart, stories that might be too precious or too painful to share with a world full of judgment. He sits at the bottom of this list not because he isn't wanted, but because he is the winner in terms of guarding privacy. Or perhaps he is a lover so sincere that it's hard for him to just engage in shallow relationships. Number 6, Jin. Moving on to Kim Sok-jin. This is the most unique case in my opinion. We know he has the nickname Worldwide Handsome, and logically, a guy with visuals like his during school days must have been like a magnet attracting every love letter in the city. But strangely, Jin's public dating history is almost non-existent. The only thing that ever blew up was a silly rumor with a comedian, which, if you think about it, was just a media tactic or a misunderstanding by netizens. At this point, I'm starting to wonder, is Jin the type of man who guards his family's honor so fiercely that he doesn't want even a single stain on his record? Or was he just that focused on his acting dreams back then? If we look at his background, Jin comes from a well-off family, and usually kids like that have very high standards or are very private. My personal opinion is that Jin is actually a very practical person. He might have had relationships, but he knows exactly how to end them without leaving a single digital footprint. This is what's rarely discussed. The psychological impact of being the handsome single guy in the public eye for years is heavy. There's pressure to always look perfect and unattainable. I sense a kind of elegant loneliness in the way he carries himself. He doesn't need validation about how many women he's dated to feel confident. Jin proves that being mysterious is the ultimate form of power in an industry hungry for scandals. Number 5, J-Hope. Now we're entering somewhat emotional territory. Jung Ho-sok, the man we always see as the sun that shines the brightest. But did you know, behind his loud laughter, there's a story of an ex-girlfriend that I think is the most painful for a man's ego. He once admitted, quite bluntly, that he once had a girlfriend he loved very much, but then she left him for another man. Ouch. If I were him at that time, I might have lost my way. At this point, I personally start to ask, did J-Hope's extraordinary work ethic emerge because he wanted to prove to his ex that he could become the most successful man on the planet? This isn't just a regular breakup, it's about betrayal. The social impact of this story is huge for fans because it makes J-Hope feel so real, so human. He's not just a dancing machine, he's a man who once felt not enough for someone. What people rarely discuss is how BTS's early songs might have been heavily inspired by this heartbreak. I personally feel a mix of frustration and admiration. Frustration because someone had the heart to leave a diamond like him, but admiration because he turned that emotional trash into fuel to explode on the world stage. J-Hope is proof that even the most painful ex can be the best teacher for success. Number 4, Jungkook. Jungkook is an interesting case because he grew up under the camera's lens. Before he became the golden maknae we know, there were several pre-debut photos circulating showing him quite close to some girls. There are names often mentioned in Korean internet forums, but Jungkook once gave a statement that I find very reflective and honest. He said he dated back then, but it didn't feel like dating. He admitted he was too young at the time, so the relationship was just, let's be a couple, and the next day he didn't know what to do. If you think about it, that's incredibly honest. Many of us experienced the same thing in middle school, right? But the difference is, Jungkook's exes now have to bear the weight of the reality that they were once part of the life of the most famous person in the world. The psychological impact on Jungkook must involve an incredible sense of awkwardness. I suspect the reason he looks so closed off about his personal life now is that he learned from his childhood experiences, which were often misinterpreted. Here, I begin to feel a deep sense of empathy. He lost his normal teenage years, where he should have been able to make mistakes in dating without being commented on by millions. His past romances are the last remnants of his normal life before he was bought by the industry. Number 3, Suga. Suga, or Min Yoongi. Now this one is my favorite story. Why? Because it's so poetic and so Yoongi. The story about him sending a letter to a local radio station to apologize to his ex-girlfriend isn't just an internet fact, it's a piece of his soul. He admitted that back then he was very stiff and shy, so he couldn't treat his girlfriend properly until they eventually broke up. At this point, I start to ponder how different the current Suga, who looks cold but is actually very caring, is from the teenage Suga, who could only express regret through a radio letter. This shows a deep background that he is a person who deeply values memories. My opinion is that Suga is the type of man who, once he cares for someone, will remember them forever, even if the relationship has ended. The cultural impact is that Suga provides validation for many guys out there that feeling awkward and failing in a relationship is okay. What's rarely discussed is how his courage to admit past failures actually makes him look much more manly than those who brag about many exes. I personally feel silenced every time I remember this story, because behind his hard music, there's an old wound he tends with great maturity. Number 2, RM. The leader, Kim Namjoon. He is one of the bravest when it comes to talking about ex-girlfriends on national TV during their early debut days. He told a story about his high school relationship that ended because the girl had too many male friends and a social circle that made RM feel uncomfortable. This is fascinating. It wasn't just breaking up out of boredom, but because of a difference in principles and insecurity. I personally feel this is very confrontational and honest. RM doesn't try to look like the perfect man who can accept everything. He has boundaries, he has jealousy, and he has an ego. This background gives the impression that RM is a man who seeks intellectual depth and compatibility of values in a relationship. Socially, this story is often used by fans to analyze his deep lyrics. I'm starting to wonder, did RM's above-average intelligence actually become a boomerang in his romantic relationships? It might be hard for an ordinary woman to keep up with a thought process as complex as his. RM is second on the list because he gives us the most real and logical relationship narrative, which makes us all reflect on our own personal experiences filled with jealousy dramas and social mismatches.
Number 1, Taehyung. And at the top spot, we have Kim Taehyung. Why is he number 1? Not because he's a playboy in a negative sense, but because of his most sensational confession. V once said that he had many girlfriends, but none of them were serious, mostly lasting less than 20 days. He said he couldn't say no when people confessed their love to him because he was afraid of hurting their feelings. If you think about it, that's the weirdest yet most sincere reason I've ever heard. This shows the psychological impact of someone whose heart is too kind to say no. V is a phenomenon. His face is the world standard of handsomeness, but his romantic history is full of instant relationships that might not have deep meaning. But wait, don't get me wrong. At this point, I personally start to suspect, is this V's way of protecting himself from truly heavy commitment? Or maybe he just hasn't found the person who can truly touch his unique soul. What people rarely discuss is how risky V's admission was. He could have been labeled as someone unfaithful, but he instead came across as an honest man searching for his identity. My honest opinion is that V is number 1 because he has the most recorded romantic interactions openly acknowledged, even if they all ended in a flash. He is living proof that having many exes doesn't mean having a lot of love. Sometimes it just means you're on a long journey looking for that one right person among millions who only worship your face.